Greetings. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. Good to have you all here again. Welcome to this reading of the Cosmic Doctrine, Chapter 31. Now, some would say that this is the end, but those of us who know this text, if you have it, you know this is not quite the end. We're going to read Chapter 31, and the next time we will follow up with the afterthoughts. But for now, we're going to unofficially complete this text. So let me know if the audio is coming through clear, anybody. Okay, sounds good. The audio is clear. Speaking of clear, if you haven't noticed, the page here is sparkly crisp. And yeah, I had to make some changes here. Unfortunately, I knocked my iPhone off of the kitchen counter and now it won't turn on anymore. So I'm without a phone for just a little bit. That makes recording or broadcasting these live streams a lot easier, but without it, got to make do. So I had to dust off this old camera from 2019 book reads, and obviously it works. But hey, one monkey don't stop no show. Welcome, my friends. Welcome being here, and I appreciate you being here. For sure. Oh, let me turn that echo off. So yeah, peace to everybody. Peace. Corey Hill, welcome. Honey Brown, peace and welcome. Hey, listen, it was perfect. I thank you so much. I thank you, and I'm grateful for your time and your energy and your effort. Absolutely perfect. I had myself a nice ritual to make everything align, and yeah, thank you so much. Ashley B. Ryan's Knowledge Room, peace and greetings, my friend. Welcome. Back in the building. Sly, peace. Welcome. Lady Justice, peace. Chapter 31, the ox and the goad. Give me a minute to figure that out. WT, peace and greetings, man. Peace and greetings. Double feature today, right? Double feature. BKA Soul, Mike, what's happening? Peace. Welcome. Peace, Dr. Lakeith. Thank you as well, my friend. I appreciate you. You know why. Thank you. We in here. Rosa Flame. Hello, my love. Peace. And you know what? I appreciate you holding down the live streams. So listen, Rosa Flame also does live streams on occult texts. So if you're not subscribed to Rosa Flame's channel, by all means, go ahead and click on his profile here, and you should be able to locate their channel. I see that you've been streaming almost daily. But yeah, appreciate you holding it down. So yeah, we're about to get into chapter 31. Let me light up this Fruity Pebbles essential oil, and we're in there. That's my anchor. You know, when it comes to anything I do, really, I try to employ as many 5 sensory anchors as possible, right? Because the more that you, at least what I understand, the more that you lock in the symbology of what you're doing, the more that you encapsulate the essence of what you're doing into symbols, right? Into correspondences. That's why you have a library of correspondences. The more that you do that intentionally, the more that you can fine tune and focus what you're trying to connect with. right? So that's why we light candles and incense and have crystals and little icons and tarot cards and all the different things that we have. It's not just because they are magical and they look cool. Maybe at first that's what you think, but we use those things to like focus and fine tune that signal. And hell, if you can do it for every mundane thing in your life, why not? Why not? I ritualize damn near everything. All right, I think we're good to go. I can smell the fruity pebbles. Lady Justice says path 11 to 32. Its center is 22. The ox goad. L is the 22nd path. The title of this chapter. Okay, okay. That's what I'm talking about. Louis in the building. Peace and greetings, my friend. Welcome, welcome. Let's begin. Chapter 31. The law of the attraction of the center. The law of the attraction of the center. The law of the attraction of the center contains the secret of the mystery of love. It may be considered under three aspects. Firstly, in relation to evolution. Secondly, in relation to initiation. And thirdly, in relation to devolution and the left-hand path. Now, when we're talking about evolution, of course, the first thing that comes to our minds is monkeys becoming people. But understand, with this whole thing we got here, evolution is far bigger than monkeys turning into people. We're talking about the journey of that spinning motion in the beginning, right? The seed of consciousness becoming form, and that form uh, basically becoming aware of itself and then transcending the form that it was built into. So it's like the evolution we could see is the stirrings of life all the way down to life becoming something tangible and then becoming intangible again. Because step one is the motion. Step two is that motion, that consciousness developing and expressing its patterns. And it's expressing its patterns, and its patterns are expressing its patterns, and its patterns that expressed its patterns are expressing their patterns. And that infinite simplicity becomes infinite complexity. And then that infinite complexity becomes infinite simplicity. And the cycle repeats. And what I am assuming is that by the end of the journey, you realize that there was no journey, that the complexity and the simplicity was one and the same. It's so strange. It's peculiar. But that's what I translate that she's talking about when it comes to evolution. Okay. Good. So let's talk about these three aspects, right? We talk about mystery of love, considered under these three aspects. One, in relation to evolution. When a form of life has attained its utmost complexity of material organization, unification begins. And see, that's what I was talking about. It becomes super complex. It's super simple. Then it becomes super complex. And within that complexity, it now can realize the unity. Kind of like, you might have lived in a small town all your life. And then let's say you might join the military, or you might travel for some reason, and you just go all over the world. And at first, your world is tiny. Your worldview is tiny. Then you branch out and realize, oh, the world is so big. But the more that you see, the more that you realize, no, the world is small. I keep meeting the same people. I keep seeing the same situations. These places all look different, but there's a certain similarity to it. And this is going to happen in any field that you dive into. Whether you're somebody that's into sports, whether you're somebody that builds construction stuff, the more data that you see, the more the unity becomes obvious. I love it. I love it. So let's talk about this in relation to evolution, right? There's three. The law of attraction of the center contains the secret of the mystery of love. It may be considered under three aspects. This mystery of love, three aspects. And this makes me think of Bina. This makes me think of the Three of Swords. When you see that heart with the three swords piercing it, the vision of sorrow. That's the secret name of Bina, wonderful Mother Saturn. It contains the secret of the mystery of love. It may be considered under these three aspects. Firstly, in relation to evolution. Secondly, in relation to initiation. And thirdly, in relation to devolution and the left-hand path. Rajas, Thomas, and Sattva. Whenever you see threes, you see the three gunas. Zero the hero, back in the building. Good evening, my friend. Good evening. Realm Lilith, always a pleasure. Hope you're having a great night. Rosa Flame says, and for anyone wondering, that channel is linked in my bio. Thank you again, Travis. So yeah, tap into Rosa Flame's channel, find the link in the bio. For sure. Honey Brown says, brings to mind the more things seem to change, the more they stay the same. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the older that we all get, like I said, it becomes obvious. The simplicity of the complexity becomes glaringly obvious. You can't help it. And like I said, no matter what you do, no matter what you're involved in, no matter if you focus your attention and your energy on anything in this world for an extended amount of time, you will see that all the stuff you thought was so different is actually the same. Emperor Rex, peace, peace, and welcome. I am that I am. Peace, peace. So, in relation to evolution, when a form of life has attained its utmost complexity of material organization, unification begins. Never forget it. This is obtained by means of synthesis upon a higher plane. So listen close. She's going to get kind of mystical with this, but you can kind of see it, right? You can kind of see it. Stuff starts. The real magic and action is taking place in the higher planes, guys. The astral plane, the etheric plane. That's really where the stuff is going down. Like, yeah, it's cool to see it in the physical plane, and yeah, you will. But you gotta know that the party is happening on the astral plane and the etheric plane. Ain't nothing down here in the material plane, but animals doing animal shit. You know that. Animals doing animal shit. But the magic, right? The Star Wars type shit, the Harry Potter type shit, all that's happening on the etheric plane and the astral plane. And to me, that makes it even more valid. You don't have to see it to know that it's going down. But pay attention. This unification, right? This is obtained by means of synthesis upon a higher plane. And this having been secured, devolution of the physical form set in. This marks the transition through the nadir of the evolutionary arc. When she's talking about the nadir of the evolutionary arc, remember we said it starts at the top, consciousness, then it comes down into form, and then eventually it realizes itself and goes back up. That's the nadir. It has to cross that peak. It has to round it and come on back up. See, if you in your journey of evolution, if you don't cross that peak and come back around, you don't evolve, you devolve. And that's what she considers the left-hand path, coming down and realizing, oh, life has a lot of challenges. There's a lot of things going on with life. Maybe I can bypass them and go back. You can do that, but I highly would not recommend that. Let's talk about why. All right, so this marks the transition through the nadir of the evolutionary arc. And also look at this curious line. It's obtained by means of synthesis upon a higher plane, all right? And this having been secured, once that happens, devolution of the physical form set in, right? This is why you get a little bit wiser when you start to get older and closer to death, because all this time of living, the knowledge is being synthesized, the wisdom and the experience is being synthesized on that higher plane. And that coincides with the deterioration or the devolution of the physical form. By the way, this doesn't just happen with the individual. This happens with groups at large. So perhaps the craziness we're seeing with the human race is a wonderful sign. Let us elaborate this concept. Ideas of life expression having been evolved by entities of a higher grade than the life forms under consideration. Such ideas are projected upon these life forms in the etheric kingdom as they are approaching materialization. And in the malleable matter of the etheric type, they are worked out. And this acts as a framework for the subsequent physical form. So like I said, it goes down in the etheric plane. After that, after all of these patterns are set into place and synthesized and working together fluidly as a system, it almost casts a shadow down on the physical plane. But it starts in the etheric, starts in the astral, does not start in the physical. We all know that here because this is not our first rodeo, right? You practicing maguses, practicing magi. The life forces compelled to circulate in the forms built in matter develop a set of magnetic stresses. You'll see her teach this lesson in every nonfiction? Fiction. Every book that she writes that is not a storybook, right? The life forces compelled to circulate in the forms built in matter develop a set of magnetic stresses. You can kind of see these magnetic stresses as like a blueprint or a prototype in the etheric plane. That's what holds you together. That's why you can clip your nails and they'll grow back in the same shape. That's why you can cut your hair and it keeps growing back. There's almost like an energetic mold of you in the etheric plane. And no matter what you do in the physical, it always starts to return to that mold. But see, you as an individual don't just have that. Everything has that. That's why cats always come out as cats and do cat stuff every single time. They don't do nothing new. They do cat stuff because that's pressed into their mold, their magnetic stress. Everything has and we might call it the morphogenic field. You can call it whatever you want to, but this resides in what we call the etheric plane, and that is and those stresses and those patterns are a result of the synthesis that's happening in the etheric kingdom. That's why I said it's going down to the etheric plane, because the more that you understand that, you stop trying to force stuff to happen on the physical and you start forcing stuff to happen up there, right? Imagine you build a cookie cutter pattern for what you want to manifest and you let that pattern fill itself in. It's easy, right? The life forces compelled to circulate in the forms built in matter develop a set of magnetic stresses. These having been developed, the material form can be discarded, and the system of magnetic stresses remains as an etheric mold. Thus does an inceptive idea pass through the plane of manifestation of matter and become a conceptive idea. Cool, right? Right? So in this way, an inceptive, inception, planting that seed. You remember the movie. Thus does an inceptive idea pass through the plane of manifestation of matter and become a conceptive idea. There's got to be an inception before it could be a conception. Somebody write that down. There's got to be an inception before there's a conception. There are many different devices employed for obtaining the same result. And though each of these owes its inception to a different inceptive idea, a different attempt to work out a design, the conceptive idea of perfect adaptation is the same for all. So that which was multiplicity in its origin, by the perfection of its development, arrived at unity. When the multiplicity is perfected, it arrives at unity. Unity is the end result of this thing. And it was also the beginning of this thing. I'll read that again. There are many different devices employed for obtaining the same result. Right? How many different ways can you make an omelet? There are many different devices employed. How many different ways can you make a burrito? How many different ways can you fill your belly with food? There are many different devices employed for obtaining the same result. And though each of these owes its inception to a different inceptive idea, right? You've got your idea to make a chicken burrito from somewhere else, or you got an idea to make a beef burrito from somewhere else. You got an idea to make a bean and cheese burrito from somewhere else, right? Each of these owes its inception to a different inceptive idea, a different attempt to work out a design. Check this out though. The conceptive idea of perfect adaptation is the same for all. So no matter where you got your idea of a burrito from, no matter how you make it, wrap it up, season it, the the same concept, the same end result is going to happen. Look at this. Look at how clean this is, man. And here's she's summing it up with this last sentence. So that which was multiplicity in its origin, by the perfection of its development, arrived at unity. Y'all better catch this powerful stuff, man. Y'all got to catch this powerful stuff. Because check that out. Doesn't that sound like Samkhya? Doesn't that sound like the yoga principles? How she said that, so that which was multiplicity in its origin, by the perfection of its development, arrived at unity. That sounds like Samkhya because I forget the exact phrase, but yeah, the effect is bundled up in the cause. That's what Samkhya says. The effect is bundled up in the cause. That's what she's talking about. So when you see that cause, or hell, when you see any effect, you can trace it back to the same cause. All of us being here right now, listening to these words, reading this book, thinking about this information, this is all of our experience can be bundled up to the same cause. The person who made this music, the person who made the camera that I'm using, it's all bundled up to the same cause. So that which was multiplicity in its origin, by the perfection of its development, arrived at unity. One is the symbol of the first manifest. One is the symbol of the first manifest. Whatever reduces multiplicity to unity, or a complex concrete to a simple abstract. Look at that, a complex concrete. Now we got lots of that in this world, lots of complex concretes. But check out that simple abstract. One is the symbol of the first manifest. Whatever reduces multiplicity to unity, or a complex concrete to a simple abstract, is approaching the center. Whatever reduces multiplicity to unity is approaching the center. What that tells me is the further up you go, the more simple it gets. The further up you go, the more you're going to start to see that everything is the same thing. All is one. You start to experience that. That's why I keep saying there ain't no fucking devil demon waiting to tear you apart. You know, you're not going to astral project and consider yourself going higher planes and have to worry about fighting something or getting hurt. Like that's all that stuff exists down here with the multiplicity. And that's also why desire disappears, because what is there to desire when you're one with it? Like all this stuff starts to connect and make sense when you really look at this. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if this interpretation that I'm sharing with you right now is incorrect in any way whatsoever. One is the symbol of the first manifest. Whatever reduces multiplicity to unity is approaching the center. The approach to the center is not a movement in space, but a unification. It's not a movement in space. It's a unification. Golly. So once again, the parties happen in the higher planes. It's not down here. It's not down here. That's why you're not going to be shooting fireballs. That type of stuff happens in the etheric plane, in the astral plane. Lightning bolts from your fingertips and literally transmuting coal into gold and all the fanciful stuff. All that is happening on the higher planes. Why? Because the closer up you go, the more it's all one. The closer up you go, coal is gold. The closer up you go, all is one. Baphomet. The closer up you go, the higher up you go, all is one. The approach to the center is not a movement in space. So don't worry about what's happening right here in this physical plane. That's for your body. That's for your animal body to be in this animal zoo, right? Animal stuff happens in the animal zoo. Let it be what it is. Meanwhile, your spiritual journey, you're not going to be floating in Indian style, teleporting to this place and that place. You can try, by all means try. But the true sign and signification that you're making progress is you're getting closer to unification. Unification. Would you trade your magic for this? Would you trade your funk for this? Rosa Flame says, so is it Circuit of Force next or a reread of Samkhya? That's a great question. That's a great question, honestly. One of those books I really love, and one of them I have not done a live stream yet. We'll see how it goes, man. I'm going to pray on it. I'm going to pray on it. I'm going to ask those books which one of them, and I'm already hearing the answer right now. It's probably going to be Circuit of Force, but we'll see. You trade your funk for this. The approach to the center is not a movement in space, but a unification. Highlight that if you did not already. Now, note the difference between unification and simplification, because this is the clue to much. Unification is achieved by evolution, okay? And simplification is achieved by devolution. Okay, you get that now. So you got simplification, you got unification. We talked about unification. Unification, uni, one, right? Source. Now we're talking about simplification, right? Simplify it. You got to break it down, right? So note the difference between unification and simplification, because this is the clue to much. Unification is achieved by evolution. Simplification is achieved by devolution. Unification is the full synthesis. Simplification is the ultimate analysis. Like I said, you got to break it down, right? Simplification is the ultimate analysis. And who analyzes? For my Kabbalah folks out there, right? Who analyzes? Hod, right? Hod analyzes. Who breaks, cuts, and slices? My Kabbalah students. Who pulls out that iron? Who unsheaths that sword? Who cuts it up? We're talking about Gibura, right? And we're talking about breaking it down. We're talking about the left-hand path. Unification is the full synthesis. Simplification is the ultimate analysis or return to type. One is the advancement to completion. The other is a regression to commencement. Now, I said that because, she mentioned here on the previous page, devolution deals with the left-hand path, right? So we're talking about simplification, talking about breaking it down, right? She said analysis. That's your key word. That's Hod right there. Hod is analysis. And what is analysis? A return to type. So what are we really doing? Like, what am I doing right now? I'm breaking it down. I'm applying my left hand to this. I'm applying Hod to this. I'm taking this glorious abstract information, which she also broke down from wherever she got it from, and I'm further breaking it down. But you see, I'm using metaphors, similes, analogies, and I'm breaking it down and comparing it to everyday stuff. Now, this is not to make a religion, right? You don't take my words and just say, oh, that's law. You pick up these pieces that I'm offering to you, and you connect them back and find where it came from. That's how the teaching works. The teaching works because the teacher breaks it down. Your job as a student is to take the pieces and put them back together and see what the picture it creates. You put the puzzle pieces together and see what it creates. What a fool does is take the piece and worship the piece. And we don't do that around here. We don't do that around here. All that being said is, like I said, like she said, the difference between evolution, or I should say unification, which is evolution, and simplification, which is devolution. Sometimes you gotta solve et coagula, right? Somebody got that tattooed on his forearms. You gotta solve et coagula. You gotta break it down to build it back up. So there's nothing wrong with it. Just understand the process. got a Solvayet coagula. Check. Everybody follow. Everybody picking up what I'm putting down. We're on the same page. Would you trade your magic for this? Because this is not domestically produced. This is not domestically produced. I already told you where you're not going to get it. The concept of the return to the center might be considered as an extension of the center. I like that. The concept of the return to the center might be considered as an extension of the center. For when return to the center takes place, the center is thereby extended. Let's pause right there. Just take it up just a little bit. She said the approach to the center is not movement in space, but a unification. Y'all got to meditate on that line right there. But let's bring it back now. The concept of the return to the center, because remember, it's not a movement in space. The concept of the return to the center might be considered as an extension of the center. So look, it's not that you moved. It's not a spiritual journey. The center, in a way, for lack of better words, relocated. Or perhaps you realized that the center was wider or larger than you previously perceived. Let's get through this paragraph. The concept of the return to the center might be considered as an extension of the center. For when return to the center takes place, the center is thereby extended. LVX, extension of light. The center is thereby extended. And we are taught that the return to the center is the goal of evolution. If this idea be meditated upon, it will be seen that such a return to the center should involve the extension of the center. For if all that is external becomes internal, the boundary must be extended. Doesn't that make clean common sense? If all that is external becomes internal, the boundary must be extended. I'm going to read that again, but I want you to think about these two words compared to each other. Objective reality and subjective reality. What's objective reality? What's the difference between objective reality and subjective reality? What's the difference between those two things? So let's read that again. If this idea be meditated upon, it will be seen that such a return to the center should involve the extension of the center. For if all that is external becomes internal, the boundary must be extended. It's all a dream, playboy. It's all a simulation. All of it's a simulation. Your inner reality and your outer reality. So what happens in those movies when a sim realizes that he lives in an artificial world? What happens to that character? Man, y'all always talk about, they telling all in the movie. They're telling us in the movie. What did they tell you in that movie? Did you get the obvious thing that everybody's talking about, or did you get the deeper implication? Because guess what? In the Matrix, when they out there in the raggedy clothes, they still in a simulation. It's just a different simulation. Uh-oh. Oh, but that's not tonight's conversation. If this idea be meditated upon, it will be seen that such a return to the center should involve the extension of that center. For if all that is external becomes internal, the boundary must be extended. In very truth, it may be conceived that the return to the center means that the center is extended to the circumference, and all things are as is the center. This implies the spiritualization of all the planes. And I forgot to mention about meditation. Dharana Darshan, he gives us the definition of meditation, and he says when the inner and the outer combine as one, when that thing that you're focused on and the focuser, right? When the observer and the observed becomes one thing, that's called meditation. That's called dharana, right? Not simply closing your eyes and replaying your day and thinking about what you want to manifest, or sitting down and getting comfortable. Like from the culture that, damn near created meditation and the different processes, they say that the definition of meditation is when the external and the internal becomes one, when the observer and the observed becomes one. No Limit Studios. Can I speak to P? P ain't here. P ain't here. Rosa Flame says their center whose circumference is everywhere. Fat Tony, peace, peace and greetings. Welcome, welcome. Chicano 22, peace and greetings, my friend. Chicano says no difference. It should be a clear mirror. Should be, right? That's the ideal. That's what we're attaining to with this paragraph, right? Should be a clear mirror. In practice, it's not. We know that it is, but we need to experience that the objective and the subjective are the same thing. We don't have that experience yet, but the more that we do get that experience, then you'll see why this is funny, but also sad, and it also doesn't matter, and it's also the only thing that matters. No Limit Studios. Can I speak to P? P ain't here. Kashigi, peace. So at the end, she said that this implies the spiritualization of all the planes. Yes, Malkuth is divine and glorious. Yes, the physical plane is also heaven. Yes. You just might need to adjust your definitions of these terms. Such a concept has two aspects: the form aspect and the force aspect. Force flows towards the center, withdrawing from the circumference. It therefore follows that the center, to accommodate it, must flow out. Remember when she told us about force and form in the mystical Kabbalah, and how the right pillar represents the pillar of force and the left pillar represents the pillar of form, force and form, right? Such a concept has two aspects: the form aspect and the force aspect. So it isn't so much that we're glorifying this tree of life, right? It's the Kabbalah, the tree, like that's not important. What's being given to you is a path, a medium, right? Something to work through. It's not that there's a tree of life that exists. It's a symbol that helps you to bring your thoughts to connect your thoughts and bring these concepts together. And you see that these two pillars represent force and form. And between those pillars of force and form, there's a net, there's a web, there's a tapestry that hangs between those two pillars. And again, none of this is real. But in order to understand it, you have to conceptualize it. Framestar Films, peace and greetings. No Limit Studios. Can I speak to Pete? Yeah, here. Tell P. Pastor Troy said. It therefore follows that the center, right, force flows towards the center, withdrawing from the circumference. It flows towards the center, withdrawing from the circumference. So you can think of a sphere, right? And force being on the outside of that sphere is now pushing inwards. So force is pushing into the center of the circle. Check this out. It therefore follows that the center, to accommodate it, must flow out. So there's your concept of, you can see that picture of, where the picture of God floating towards Adam, and Adam's laying there like a lazy bum, barely lifting his finger up, and God's like using all the power of heaven to reach out so they can touch fingers. It's like that. Thus it is the substance of each plane, having had its native form withdrawn, is recast by the influences of the extending center into approximate forms. Thus it is the substance of each plane. So think about all the different planes. Having had its native form withdrawn. Why? Because the force is reaching towards the center. Having its native form withdrawn is recast by the influences of the extending center into approximate forms to those which prevail upon the seventh plane. The withdrawing of force marks the end of a cosmic day and the beginning of a cosmic night. The outflowing of the center is the work of the cosmic night, and the secrets of the cosmic night have never been revealed before. Spicy. Spicy. Framestar Films, got to link back up with you. I saw your message. Has some technical difficulties lately, but yes, we will most certainly connect, my friend. Zero says, Trav, today you have the fire unicorn. Yeah, man. I think it has ignited for me recently. Cosmic Puzzle Piece, welcome back into approximate form. Approximate, right? And look at what was said here. There's something very interesting that happens. Keep in mind this line that I asked you to highlight. The approach to the center is not a movement in space, but a unification. Cool beans, right? And I asked you to conceptualize the difference between the objective plane and the subjective plane. Remember that? And then we talked about up here, she said that in very truth, it may be conceived that the return to the center means that the center is extended to the circumference, and all things are as is the center. This implies the spiritualization of all planes. So there's a shifting that's happening. There's something that's leaving, but at the same time, there's something that's returning. And if that's the case, is anything actually moving? What would that experience be like? Like, can we even bring it down to a metaphor of human experience? Would that be something like your soul and your consciousness starts to drift out of your body and return to where it belongs, but at the same time, from the source is now entering a bunch of spiritual consciousness into your form to replace it? Is that what she meant when she talked about initiation? She said, firstly, in relation to evolution, secondly, to initiation, and thirdly, to devolution. What's going on here? Kashiki asks, is this book just Samkhya explained, translated to the Western mind? I would say a hard no. I would say yes, there are heavy references and concepts and similarities. In fact, if you have studied Samkhya, you will benefit from studying this book because a lot of it you'll understand. Is it just Samkhya explained? Hell no. Hell no. There's a lot more going on. Samkhya is very, how do I say it? Very bare bones. and it's intentionally that way. There's no spookiness. There's no spiritual, lovey-dovey stuff. It's straight up technology. It's straight up system format, right? You connect this plug to this place, and this is why this happens. This book adds a little bit of that juice, right? That subjective juice that allows the abstract mind to put pieces together when you're not thinking about this. What did she say in the beginning of this book? Maybe you didn't see that, but let's return to the beginning of this book so you can understand why what I just said is important. She says, these images are designed to train the mind, not to inform it. So honestly, the goal of this book is not to teach you about the layout of the cosmos. It's to train you, or excuse me, it's not to train you about the layout of the cosmos. It's to give you an experience of understanding that, which is going to take you far further than memorizing some words or a pattern. But like I said, if you understand Samkhya to a workable degree, this book will benefit you tremendously. Is it just? Usually when it comes to like the spiritual stuff, I try to stay far away from reduce and see, and that's an example of what she talked about here with that simplification. When we say, is it just, what we're doing is we're trying to squeeze it into a framework that we already understand. And what I explained was that this is something totally new. And while the framework that you understand can help you understand this, this is something that deserves its own space in your mind. Go ahead and make a new category for it. You cannot put this on the same shelf as Samkhya and claim to understand what's being transmitted. However, both will be of great benefit. I'll say again what I said earlier. The magic is happening in the higher planes. It's happening in the etheric plane, the astral plane, right, and all of the above. That's where the magic is happening. So when I say practical, when I say workable understanding, when I say things like that, I don't mean that you can take some sentences from Samkhya Darshan or the mystical Kabbalah and you know whatever TikTok and internet people think you do with magic. It's not quite like that. You have a different understanding of reality, and since you have a different understanding of reality, reality must accommodate to your understanding. It must adjust to your. You see what I'm saying? Like if you have a very simple and basic and lame understanding of reality, you got a very basic, simple, and lame life. No matter what you do, right? You could be a millionaire and still be lame and simple and basic, or a celebrity or rock star or whatever your highest thing is. But when you have a depth of understanding, you not only do you move different, but life moves different around you. That's what makes this information so powerful. Life moves differently around you. There's stuff that you don't have to deal with no more simply because you understand life differently. There's a lot of trouble to be saved by simply not being around certain people. But some people don't understand that. And they include with them the company of bad luck, bad behavior, and experience bad luck and bad behavior and wonder why is this happening to me. When you could simply understand that, hey, with certain kind of people come certain kind of experiences. And if you separate yourself from those people, you now separate yourself from those experiences. See, that's an understanding, right? And the more that you understand, well, not even the more that it's not even about quantity. I love that line that she said in this previous page. She said, the approach to the center is not a movement in space, but it's a unification, right? So when you start understanding from a perspective of unification, you automatically eliminate a lot of trouble, a lot of suffering. You eliminate suffering when you have a certain level of understanding. I'm not trying to fight no damn Illuminati. Did you know that that having that kind of mindset brings with it a lot of suffering? Point to the Illuminati that you're going to fight. Point to them and explain how you're going to fight, right? All this suffering because of your level of understanding. not because somebody's doing something to you, but your level of understanding incurs harmony or disharmony. So that's what's so beautiful about studying this information. This type of information has a tendency to obliterate ignorance. Obliterate ignorance, and that's gonna manifest differently for everybody. But boy, oh boy, am I grateful for obliterating several chunks of ignorance in my life. All my ignorance brought me pain and suffering, and was I happy to see the light shine and obliterate that ignorance. Zero asks, do you think, Trav, that the great work is the same as the Enlightenment in the Eastern traditions? I would say that that would be a healthy comparison. I would say that if you made that comparison, you would be close enough to compare work from both sides and make progress. Yeah, I would say that's a healthy comparison. And also, and the thing is to not just know that, but to take what comes with it. One thing I love about metaphors and has made me very cautious with the metaphors that I choose. When you take a metaphor, you got to take all of it, right? So if you say life is like a rainy day, you got to include the, do you wear them rubber boots? What kind of umbrella do you have? Do you change your behavior on a rainy day? Like, does your bones hurt? You know what I'm saying? Like when you take a metaphor, you got to take all the stuff that comes with it. So if you're going to compare the great work to the Eastern tradition, also understand, what comes with the Eastern tradition of enlightenment. What comes to mind for me is that you don't chase enlightenment, you prepare for it. You adjust yourself and you prepare yourself, and it's more of a passive, receptive type deal. Whereas when you look at the great work, it's more of an active, right? When you think of the great work, we're doing rituals and we're invoking spirits and we're doing all this inner transmutation and inner alchemy. So if you continue down that path of thought, you're going to have some type of reconciliation with that active and passive mindset. I would say it's a healthy comparison, but there will come a point where you're going to have to reconcile the active versus the passive. Let me know if that makes sense. For me, how that has manifested is I know that there is stuff that I can do and I do, but I also know that that's not what brings me enlightenment, and that's not what will bring the great work. The stuff that I do, but I know that this enlightenment is not something that you can do to get. All you can do is prepare for it, make the conditions uh, attractive for it. In other words, you can do magic, you can do rituals and all that stuff, but understand why you're doing it, and it's not for enlightenment. If anything, like it's like what I said, for transmuting your understanding and obliterating ignorance. And like you heard what I said before, the cleaner your understanding of reality, that's going to give you a different quality of life. So you see, just like with that enlightenment stuff in the Eastern tradition, you prepare for it. How do you prepare for it? You clean up your inner, you clean your samskaras up. You practice non-attachment, right? You practice focusing and meditating and concentrating, and all these different things lead to an inner environment that is very welcoming and pleasant to enlightenment. So the magic is actually done on your ego. It's actually done on your sense of self, not the world. However, the more that you transmute your sense of self, like I said, the world must convert. It must conform. Good golly, Miss Molly. Cosmic Puzzle Piece says, this book really changing the way my thoughts think. You and me both. You and me both. Honey Brown says, this is also timely for so many reasons and ties quite well into what I've been studying lately, lol. But yesterday I was laying down for a meditation. I just initially visualized myself descending some stairs to help me relax a bit. When I reached the bottom, there was a door with one of those antique crystal diamond shaped handles. Neat. My handles are like that. I opened it, and at first there was a flash of bright white light, but when I went through the door, there was only void and darkness. I wasn't afraid though. I told myself I could trust the space. I continued moving forward, repeating "I am" to myself, like I was trying to reach a destination. I found myself getting a little impatient, though, wondering when I'd reach the end, and after a bit, realized that there is no destination, that anything I wanted or needed could be pushed out from me right where I was. I was the center. Very interesting indeed. Very interesting indeed. Very specific with those crystal door handles, huh? Curious as to what day you had that meditation. Kashiki says Richard Bandler talked about that too, how people would try to see how other practices fit into something they're used to. He explained how they need to be viewed separately because you lose information. Exactly, right? And that's exactly what she was talking about when she was talking about simplification. When you simplify something, you have to break it down. And to break it down, you have to, since we're talking Richard Bandler here, you have to delete, distort, and generalize. You have to do that. And in doing so, you lose data. And some people, that data is going to stay lost. Whereas there are, like I said with you, you said you understand Samkhya. For someone like you can take this broken down information and build it back up. You can build the missing pieces, the deleted, distorted, and generalized pieces. You can put them back together. So, but I try to stay away from that language of, so this is basically just, because like off the rip, automatically, you're you've made a box for it to fit in. Matthew Watson. Peace and greetings, my friend. Peace and greetings. Hey, did you see the new video I put out today? Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's continue, man. Because, sheesh, I could literally be doing this for the rest of the video, and it is my intention to finish this chapter. So, the outflow of pure spirit over all planes of matter takes place during the cosmic night. So we were talking about that cosmic day, cosmic night, where the circumference is reaching towards the center, and at the same time, the center is expanding to the circumference. Um, by the way, try to see that in 3D. Try to see a sphere, right? And the energy of the sphere's surface is like shrinking down into the center, but at the same time, the center is expanding out. Can you see that? Like a sphere, and you got like blue energy going towards the center from the surface, and you got like red energy coming out of the center towards the surface. Can you see that? Oh my goodness. There's a right way and a wrong way to drink coffee. I think I learned from experience just now. All right. The outflow of pure spirit over all planes of matter takes place during the cosmic night. And remember, the cosmic night is when the center extends out towards the surface. And the archetypal forms remaining in the vicinity of the magnetic stresses are thereby galvanized. Somebody look up the word galvanized. Somebody look up the word galvanized. What is galvanized? Galvanize. Maybe I'll look it up. Simple past tense and participle of galvanize. Duh. Okay, the meaning of galvanize is to subject to the action of an electric current, especially for the purpose of stimulating physiologically. To cause someone to suddenly take action, especially by shocking or exciting them in some way. To stimulate, okay? To stimulate or to shock, as with an electric current. All right, that makes sense. Thank you, Zero. Shock or excite someone into taking action. It's like activate. Okay, cool, cool. So let's read that again now. The outflow of pure spirit over all planes of matter takes place during the cosmic night, and the archetypal forms remaining in the vicinity of the magnetic stresses, the etheric plane, are thereby galvanized, but they have no real life, having as yet no reincarnating principle, and therefore no memory. And at the end of the cosmic night, the spiritual tides withdraw, leaving the field to the emptiness of the cosmic dawn. But the forms over which the cosmic tide has flowed have been adjusted to cosmic stresses, and therefore all types of evil have been corrected. Interesting, right? Galvanize is to like shock into action. The outflow of pure spirit over all planes of matter takes place during the cosmic night, and the archetypal forms remaining in the vicinity of the magnetic stresses, the archetypal forms, right? They're going to repeat over and over again because they're set in place. The archetypal forms remaining in the vicinity of the magnetic stresses are thereby galvanized. They're excited now. They're pushed into action, but they have no real life. Ooh. So they have no real life, but they're spurred into action, having as yet no reincarnating principle and therefore no memory. That's almost like intelligence that's artificial. And at the end of the cosmic night, the spiritual tides withdraw, leaving the field to the emptiness of the cosmic dawn. But the forms over which the cosmic tide has flowed have been adjusted to cosmic stresses, and therefore all types of evil have been corrected. This is the cleansing of matter which takes place between each cosmic day and neutralizes the forces of inertia. And as the forces of inertia have their roots in the law of limitation, and the law of limitation has its roots in cosmic evil, you will see the significance of the work of the cosmic night. And you also see the deeper significance in the words, the powers of darkness. You know, I feel like I'm seeing a different angle of what she described earlier in this book when these three rings, the ring cosmos, ring chaos, and ring past not, shift, and all of the traveling atoms that have accumulated data, remember those guys? She talked about a part where these rings shift, and once those cosmic atoms have experienced everything, they all return home. They all come back to the center. And everything is like calm and peaceful and perfectly harmonized for like a moment, and then it shifts again. But on the inverse side, I feel like I'm seeing that process from a different angle here, because she said that this unification is not actually a movement in space, right? Even though she described these traveling atoms reaching unification again, it's not a movement in space. What is it then? Yeah, this evolution. The approach to the center is not a movement in space, but a unification. So perhaps it's not actually the stuff that's moving. It's the consciousness that's expanding. It's almost like the dream is engulfing everything. The mind of the all. The all is mind. The universe is mental. Neutralizing karma. This is the cleansing of matter, which takes place between each cosmic day and neutralizes the forces of inertia. And as the forces of inertia have their roots in the law of limitation, and the law of limitation has its roots in cosmic evil, we can think of that as the left-hand pillar, right? Bina. Saturn. Saturn is not evil. Bina is not evil. Saturn, Bina, that whole concept of limitation is what tempers expansion, right? It is the complementary force to expansion. We only call it evil because, hell, because we call expansion good. That's the only reason. The ring cosmos, we call that good because we consider life in form as a good thing. Anyways, we're not talking about actual good and evil in the moral sense. We're talking about good and evil in the relative sense. You can say positive and negative. You can say magnetic, electric, right? Two complementary forces, two pillars. Two pillars. And what about those pillars? The law of limitation has its roots in cosmic evil, and you will see the significance of the work of the cosmic night. And you also see the deeper significance in the words, the powers of darkness. So when we talk about the powers of darkness, we're talking about cosmic evil. When we talk about the cosmic night, cosmic evil, powers of darkness, we're not talking about devils with horns and pitchforks coming to terrorize the innocent people. We talk about the powers of darkness, the cosmic night, the cosmic evil. We're talking about the forces of the left hand path. The force, let's make it more practical. The forces of magnetism, the divine feminine. That does not mean female. That does not mean female body, gender. We're talking about the magnetic force, the encapsulating force, the containing force, the limiting force, the opposite of expansion, contraction. Those are the powers of darkness. The root of that, the source of that type of cosmic behavior. There we go. Zero says, is that the black hole? As the folks say, what is understood don't need to be said. Right? The black hole is science's best attempt to describe to us what the divine feminine force is. The black hole is science's best attempt to describe the divine feminine. That's your Bina in the physical form. That's your Saturn force in the physical form. That's your left-hand path in the physical form. If that's a real thing. I'm sure black holes is just a concept. But you get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying. It is necessary, if you are to understand the deeper implications of occultism, that you should see that darkness leads through twilight into dawn, and day leads through twilight to darkness. What is she saying with that, man? Is that there's no absolutes, that we're literally just looking, we can only perceive. Break it down even better. To understand what's happening, you got to recognize the polar complementary forces. I can't even say opposites. You got to understand the polar complementary forces. Because if darkness leads to day and day leads to darkness, if you zoom out, at some point they're the same thing. It's perspective. From our little bitty perspective, we can only see one at a time. From our little bitty perspective, we can only see dawn or twilight. But if you had a wider perspective, you wouldn't see dawn and twilight. You'd see The yin yang, probably. Spinning around. Spinning round. So it is necessary, if you were to understand the deeper implications of occultism, that you should see that darkness leads through twilight into dawn, and day leads through twilight to darkness. Good and evil may be conceived of as areas of light and shadow. You see what I'm saying? When you zoom out, you see it's areas of light and shadow, not absolutes. Would you trade your magic for this? Good and evil may be conceived of as areas of light and shadow through which a spinning ring evolved. And evil has its work to do as well as good. The God of light and the God of darkness are but the actions of the right and the left hand of the Father. I said if you zoom out, you'll see it's all one thing. The right hand gives and the left hand takes away. Der Herrgott gibt, der Herrgott nimmt. The good God gives and the good God takes. The right hand gives that which is to be, and the left takes away that which has been. The right sends out into manifestation, and the left beckons back again. But you, looking as in a mirror, call right left and left right. You know, I highlighted that because that's a key right there. That's a key right there. Again, from my students of Kabbalah. We don't know what right or left is. We don't know what year it is. We don't know what this planet is. We don't know anything. But we need to understand patterns so that we can have some system of working out how we make it through the day. That's all. You got the Lord of darkness and the Lord of light. Two hands, one that gives and one that takes. Gives that which is to be and takes that which is no longer to be. If God is so good, then how come he creates evil? Framestar Film says, like a dynamo, light galvanized by movement in darkness. Sex magic in essence. Absolutely. Absolutely. Galvanized, right? Excited, as if electrified, stimulated. Kundalini rising, right? Galvanized by movement in darkness. Cosmic Puzzle Piece said, in the last chapter, the word logos was used a lot. Is it appropriate if I change the word logos to dance when reading it? You know, I would say experiment with that. You try it if you want to. I don't think I would, but you experiment with that and see what comes out. Um, when I think logos, I honestly think the dreamer. I think the one that is dreaming the simulation of it. That's my understanding of it, though. If you want to play with, because obviously that came from somewhere, right? Obviously something happened, something clicked in your mind to make that metaphor, right? So play with it and see what comes up for you. Like I said before, when it comes to these metaphors, you got to take everything. What's all involved with a dance? What kind of dance are you thinking? To dance, do you need music? Right? Like I said, I use the metaphor of a dreamer. What's happening in a dream? Well, you're asleep. It's not real, at least not real on the same level that the dreamer is real on, right? You take your whole metaphor. So obviously something in your mind thought it useful and appropriate to use that, play with it, and see what comes out. Dr. Zero, Free Magic Secrets Show. Peace and greetings. Peace and greetings. Good to see you, man. Good to see you. Hope all is well on your end of this plane. Zero says Ida and Pingala. Oh wow, 0 and 0 back to back. 0 and 0. You already know. 6 days in. Peace and greetings. Welcome, 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 welcome. I see you, my friend. I've changed so much because of you. You changed so much because of yourself. You took the pieces that I displayed and you built something yourself. Congratulations. You won. Congratulations. You won. Anybody remember those pop-ups? Congratulations. You won. Okay. The attraction of the center takes place up the path of returning. And should that attraction set in prematurely, it causes the life to flow back to an earlier aspect. That's funny, right? Trying to skip ahead and you only get sent back. So the attraction of the center takes place up the path of returning. And should that attraction set in prematurely, it causes the life to flow back to an earlier. And that makes sense, right? Because like, say if you were to looking, we could say that this number right here is Kether or Malkuth. This is Malkuth down here. Descend down. You got to come around Malkuth to go back up, right? You have to come down and go right back. So in other words, the life descends through various forms, various limitations, various experiences, various planes, condensing, compressed. The complexity becomes so complex that you finally see the simplicity. And when you see that simplicity, when you see that unity, when you see the unity, you have now earned for yourself a one-way ticket back home. It's not from doing a ritual. It's not from buying a crystal. It's not what demon do I summon. When you reach a level of unity in your understanding, there is no choice but to return to that unity. You can't do nothing or be nothing other than what you already are and what you already have. So if you ain't shit, you probably wouldn't be on this live stream. Right? So you come down out of Kether and you make it to Malkuth and you realize that there is unity in the complexity. And by the virtue of your lightness, right? Because you're not heavy anymore. You're light now. You're pulled naturally on back home. Right? So everybody, how do I not come back? How do I not reincarnate? Do your work. Get your understanding right? Stop reading the new Epstein list and open up a book like this and start understanding something, right? Get that unification of reality. Did you see the new page of the list that's been written? No, I didn't see none of the page. Only pages I'm reading is the Cosmic Doctrine. But anyway, what she's talking about here with this left-hand path is, say you come down and you don't cross, right? You try to come back prematurely. Well, naturally, that pull of the center is going to pull you back the path that you came because you didn't cross. You didn't reach that unity of understanding. And if you don't reach a unity of understanding and you try to return back where you came from, like I said, you can only go where you've been. You can only do what you are. You can only be what you are. And if you haven't reached that level of harmony, of unity, you can't go back to it. You can only go back to more of what you are. Chaos beings. I saw a great example of order by chaos today at the dollar store. I'll tell you a quick story, I guess. So I'm walking down the cereal aisle and I see they got the Fruity Pebbles with the marshmallows, and I'm like, yeah, I want that. But then I realized, you know what else smells really good, but not as good as Fruity Pebbles? Fruit Loops. Fruit Loops, if you haven't had it in a long time, it's got that nice, almost citrusy kind of crispy smell to it. And I'm like, yeah, I want that instead. And I found Fruit Loops with marshmallows in it. Everything's got marshmallows except Frosted Flakes now. But anyways, as I look down, I see there's an open box of condoms. Apparently, somebody stole some condoms. Like, you know how y'all young folks do. You take it to another aisle where there's no cameras, nobody looking at you. You steal it and throw the box in the corner. So I saw this empty box of condoms behind the cereal, and I'm like, wow. I'm just thinking to myself, like, if your life isn't in such a way that you could afford condoms, you definitely don't need to be fucking. But I digress, right? No, you're not thinking logically when you do something like that. Well, anyways, I'm walking, and the employee is walking, and I'm like, hey, come here. I'm motioning for her to come here. And I ask her a question, and I'm like, you ever have the experience where the animal nature is really pulling you to do something, but then your mind kicks in and you try to force the animal in place? I say, who usually wins, the animal or the mind? And she says, the mind. And I'm like, well, yeah, ideally, we all would want the mind to win, but typically the animal wins. And then I pointed to the box of condoms and I said, somebody's animal won. You might want to grab that. And I started thinking about it, like, that is a perfect example of order versus chaos. When it comes to this chaos, I think of the natural world. I think of the beast nature of the human animal, and of all the natural nature forces. Because guess what? The natural nature of forces, they don't need logic. They don't need any type of logic. The natural nature forces are going to do what they do. So what that means is any creature is going to fuck. Any creature. You don't need a lesson. You don't need to read about it. Once those hormones start kicking and spinning, it's only a matter of time, right? There's no logic involved. Why? It's not even because the people want to do it. It's because the nature of animal is to reproduce on the planet. It's not even for you. You think it's for you because it feels good, but the true impulse is coming from somewhere so deep that you can't control it. You can't stop it as long as you have a body. So what we try to do as we get older is we try to apply logic and thought process to force our behavior. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think that on the daily, every single day, each and every one of us have an experience of order versus chaos. You have your natural animal impulses, whatever they may be. That's just an example because that always works. But hell, even hunger, right? All these natural animal impulses, they don't come from you. They come from this body. It's the nature of it. And then you try to apply order, you try to apply this logic, you try to apply this so-called higher force to direct it, to guide it, to force it in a direction. And that is magic too. Because when someone is able to successfully force that animal nature into something productive or constructive or just a singular direction, this is how we get art. This is how we get philosophy. This is how we get all these wonderful things that encourage more order. I just thought it was interesting because usually you see order versus chaos. It doesn't have to be like super spiritual. It's regular everyday human experience. And that's part of what makes human beings so special is we have the ability to harness order, to harness the concept of order. There aren't too many other creatures that can do that intentionally. But then again, who am I to assume intention? That's it right there, Zero. The strength card. The strength card. And 6 days in says order versus chaos. War never changes. And that makes me think, right? Because this just paragraph that we were just reading here, right? The right, the God of light and the God of darkness are but the actions of the right and the left hand of the Father. So when I look at that, this order and chaos, who's to say that it's two separate things? What if I haven't zoomed out enough to see that order and chaos actually belong to the same two arms of the same entity, two wings of the same bird? Absolutely, right? Both wings have to flap in order for the bird to fly. But no matter what we call it, it still reduces down to this: force and form. if it always returns to something like this, that's how you know that it's a primeval, primordial, fundamental force of existence. If everything points back to it, because again, even on the previous 2 pages, what she talked about as far as the multiplicity resolving into a unity, it's just another example. This paragraph here, this one, there are many different devices employed for obtaining the same result. And though each of these owes its inception to a different inceptive idea, a different attempt to work out a design, the conceptive idea of perfect adaptation is the same for all. So look, you might want to make a bean burrito, chicken burrito, beef burrito, and you might have got that idea from somewhere else, right? You saw an ad, you remembered the last time a friend made it for you. The ideas will come from different places, but the end result is the same. Check this out. So that which was multiplicity in its origin, by the perfection of its development, arrived at a unity. So it doesn't matter where you got the idea to eat a burrito from. You're going to eat it and get full. And guess what? That fullness, that effect was wrapped up in the seed of the desire to get something to eat, or the desire to even create burritos for the human race in the first. Like, it all comes back to that same place. It all traces back to the same origin. Everything does. Shiva and Shakti, Purusha and Prakriti, the zero and the one. That's at the fundamental foundations of this whole paradigm that we find ourselves in, with or without your participation. Hell, like I said, it's wrapped up in your everyday experience, even your breathing in and breathing out, even your blinking. Everything that we do resolves back into those two forces, weighing against each other, complementing each other. This, you said earlier, it was a dance. You wanted to call it a dance, right? Cosmic puzzle piece. 6 days in says pizza and burrito, the same thing. Both make you full. Content versus context. Bingo. Bingo. Natural Mystic said the point is to make order or comprehend chaos. Chaos is your own life. It exists when you don't know what to do with what's happening. Yeah, that's absolutely one way to take it. That's one way to take it. No Limit Studios. Can I speak to P? P ain't here. Okay, the attraction of the center takes place up the path of returning. And should that attraction set in prematurely, it causes the life to flow back to an earlier aspect. This involves a devolution of life before there is a devolution of form. A devolution of life before there's a devolution of form. When this returning flow takes place in relation to life, we see the development of parasitic types of existence. Ooh. When this returning flow takes place in relation to life, we see the development of parasitic types of existence. You know, I always did think that parasites were actually advanced life forms. We just found a super easy way to get by. Honey Brown says, for my Elder Scrolls lore fans, Anu and Padome. I don't know about Elder Scrolls, but that sounds relevant. When this returning flow takes place in relation to life, we see the development of parasitic types of existence. This explains the problem of bacterial disease. Other types of life, which are saprophytic, are not of this evolution at all, but are functioning under the dominion of the lords of the dark face, who who are scavengers of the gods. That's an interesting paragraph right there, huh? Let's go ahead and look up saprophytic. Saprophytic. That doesn't sound like a commonly understood word. I'm gonna look it up. Let's see what saprophytic means. Saprophytic, feeding or growing upon decaying animal or vegetable matter, pertaining to a saprophyte or saprophytes. Saprophytic refers to organisms, particularly fungi, that obtain nutrients by absorbing dissolved organic material from dead or decaying matter. Okay. Okay. It derives its nourishment from dead or decaying matter. All right, so we got that definition locked in. So let's go back to what was said. When this returning flow takes place in relation to life, we see the development of parasitic types of existence. This explains the problem of bacterial disease and other types of life, which are saprophytic, are not of this evolution at all. So those types of life forms, right? She's saying, according to everything that we learned in this book, those types of life forms aren't even from this evolution. It makes sense, right? Anyone who's a friend of the mushrooms, I think we've learned from experience, they're not of the same timeline, I guess. They're functioning under the dominion of the lords of the dark face, who are the scavengers of the gods. It may be said, in parentheses, that there are two types of bacterial disease: parasitic and saprophytic. And we learn what saprophytic means, right? Feeding off of the dead and the decaying matter. Parasitic and saprophytic, which may occur independently or simultaneously. This is an idea which could be elaborated, but it will not be done now. You will perceive from the foregoing that a return to the center means a fading of a day of manifestation. And as the daylight fades, the spiritualizing darkness of the unmanifest flows over the fields of matter. And this must always be borne in mind in considering this problem. For as the light withdraws from the outer circuit of matter, so the spiritualizing influences begin to flow out from the innermost circuit of spirit. And this process continues until such time as all light be withdrawn and the concentric circle of manifestation be completely overflowed with the cleansing waters of darkness. Remember, we talked about the powers of darkness, right? But meanwhile, there is a transition stage during which the waters of darkness, which is a symbol of peace, cleansing, and regeneration, make preparation for new life. These waters then are percolating through the planes of manifestation so that the seen will be interpenetrated by the unseen. This brings us to the second aspect of the subject of the attraction of the center, the question of initiation. Man, this book is so full of gems. So full of like healthy chunks of like information you could just contemplate for hours. One more time. I'd love to get more into it, but we need to get through this. You will perceive from the foregoing that a return to the center means a fading of a day of manifestation. And as daylight fades, the spiritualizing darkness of the unmanifest flows over the fields of matter. So far, remember I said to visualize a sphere, right? And you've got the external surface of the sphere gradually moving into the center, returning to the center, right? Then you got the center of the sphere expanding outward. Now that transition, right, as the center expands outward to reach the surface, that's where it's becoming a what you call it, a cosmic night. Yeah, cosmic night. So we're talking about this cosmic night. Um, the return to the center means a fading of it. Yeah, because the life, the consciousness, is being pulled from the surface down into the center. At the same time, the center is expanding out to the surface. So this process is just called the day of cosmic night. And as the daylight fades, the spiritualizing darkness of the unmanifest, the spiritualizing darkness of the unmanifest flows over the fields of matter. And this must always be borne in mind in considering this problem. For as the light withdraws from the outer circuit of matter, so the spiritualizing influences begin to flow out from the innermost circuit of spirit. And this process continues until such time as all light be withdrawn and the concentric circle of manifestation be completely overflowed with the cleansing waters of darkness. But meanwhile, there is a transition stage during which the waters of darkness, which is a symbol of peace, cleansing, and regeneration, this transition stage of the waters of darkness make preparation for new life. These waters then are percolating through the planes of manifestation. They're percolating through the planes of manifestation so that the seen will be interpenetrated by the unseen. This brings us to the second aspect of the subject of the attraction of the center, the question of initiation. The thinning of the veil, right? Framestar Film says it's an interesting time at the moment in Dubai, with missiles flying overhead being intercepted in the sky. For the magician, it's a powerful and visceral display that can be used to focus intent. Reframing. Good God. I couldn't even imagine looking up in the sky, seeing missiles flying overhead, getting exploded apart. Man. But yeah, what else is there to do but own it and reframe it and understand it in a way that's useful and appropriate? Rosa Flame says, well, Russian dolls and 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 Russian dolls, eh? That's all you see. That's all you see. You start to expand, and that is all you see. Unless, of course, you turn and look in a different direction. But for the most part, that's all you see. Now, let's talk about initiation. Number two, right? Number two, in relation to initiation. And just for a quick recap, for those of you who may have joined a little bit later, the first paragraph of this text said the law of the attraction of the center contains the secret of the mystery of love. It may be considered under three aspects. First, in relation to evolution, and we just read that. Second, in relation to initiation, we're about to read that. And thirdly, in relation to devolution and the left hand path. Let's talk about initiation. Who's still with me? Who's still awake up here at 1:43 a.m. on the East Coast? Give me something in the chat. Give me something in the chat. As we move into this influence of initiation. I remember when we used to sit in a government yard in church house. The subject, the hypocrites, and mingle with the good people we meet. All right, we in here. Initiation. 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 Absolutely. 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 So, in relation to initiation, those entities that have returned to the center at the conclusion of their evolution flow out again as the forerunners of the shadow of the spirit. Hmm. Silver Surfer type vibes, huh? It is these who are the initiators. They themselves have been enabled to progress in advance of evolution by being themselves initiated by developed entities of previous evolutions, according to the planes on which they took initiation, the lords of each plane being the completed fruits of the evolution, which had its culmination on that plane. Interesting. Interesting. 6 Days In says, anyone else feel like Jesus Christ sometimes? I want to ask if anybody else has felt like an initiator. Not sometimes, but all the time. How many people here are used to like initiators, like the first person to introduce ideas to your circle, the first person to like do something, nobody else is really feeling it. Then years later, everybody's doing it. Because usually, if you're an initiator type spirit, you have been one. Like it's not you don't not once or twice. Like you typically are like the first person to do things, and people don't get on board until they see somebody else do it. How many people here are initiators? Jesus, 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 oh Jesus, oh Jesus, oh Jesus. So those entities that have returned to the center at the conclusion of their evolution flow out again as forerunners of the shadow of the spirit. It is those who are the initiators. They themselves have been enabled to progress in advance of evolution by being themselves initiated by developed entities of previous evolutions, according to the planes on which they took initiation. The lords of each plane being the completed fruits of the evolution, which had its culmination on that plane. All of life operates in waves and hierarchies. The triangle is a perfect shape and aptly the shape that represents Binah and Saturn because the base is very wide at the bottom and the pinnacle, the tip, is very narrow. And it takes the 95% to produce the 5%. That's why you have elemental kings. The elemental kings are that top 5%, and the elemental forces are that 95%. Right? That's why you have the goetic spirits that command legions. You're talking about the cream of the crop, right? Every organization of life has its top percent and that wide bottom pyramid. That's the way that consciousness organizes. You know you've seen it before, right? You know you've seen it before. CEO person at the top, and person pushing the buggy at the bottom of the pyramid. Likewise, we talk about these lords of the lords of form, lords of force, lords of flame. or even in our daily lives. Somebody's always the leader of the group. Many of us might find ourselves as like the only like spiritual person in our life, in our circles, right? You might be the top occultist person that you know. Not because like you're super deep and super, it's just that you are the only one. I think Bobby Hemmett said something. He spoke on this before. Bobby Hemmett talked about how you don't need to worry about saving your family and your neighborhood and saving all these people. The fact that you are doing the work, these people that are attached to you, quote unquote, they benefit from that as well. You save them by doing your work. You don't save your friends and family by preaching to them about Baphomet, Purusha Prakriti, and they need to meditate. Let them do what they're supposed to do. You doing your work, you bring them forward because of what I said about that pyramid. That 95% produces that 5%. You get what I'm saying? So we talk about the initiators, right? The initiators aren't in the same place as the followers. If you're someone who said that you were an initiator, you also are not one who's just doing what everybody else does. There are some people who do wait for everyone else to do something and then do it. We've all seen that. And then when the group does something different, they do something different. Nothing wrong with that. They're supposed to. That's how they, that's their role. That's their frequency. That's their vibration. Some of us, we are burdened with the blessing of living in our own path with the agreement and approval of the masses or not. Many times without the approval of the masses. Damn, I forgot about that part. Matthew Watson said, he said they will get there before us. Right? Women and children first. Right? Women and children first. Women and children first, the children first, the children. And you know what? None of that's even our concern. Who gives a fuck? Let these folks do what they do. You focus on what you're doing. We should be way past worried about other people. Way past. That's old news. Worry about what somebody else got going on. They just won't listen to me when I try to teach them about Kabbalah. Fuck them. Let them watch the Super Bowl. That's what they're supposed to do. Let them watch the Bad Bunny halftime performance. Let them complain and eat McDonald's or whatever. Who gives a shit? I'm tired of it. Do what do. I'm here to do what I'm here to do. And you here to do what you here to do. And we connect right now on this Cosmic Doctrine. Let them salivate on the next page of Epstein's list. That's for them. That is for them. That ain't for you. You supposed to be salivating on the next page of Dion Fortune or whoever you're studying. Did y'all see the new Epstein list drop? No, motherfucker. And don't tell me about it. Ever again. That's gonna be your last time talking to me. Tired of it. Put my foot down. My phone broke, and I'll be honest, it's actually kind of nice because I realize just how much bullshit I've just been passively consuming on a daily basis. I'm gonna get my phone fixed, but I'm also gonna enjoy it not working because there's a lot of. I only realize now just how much nonsense I allow myself to consume. I got work to do, man. Good work that I love, work that I'm passionate about. I ain't got time for that nonsense. Did you hear what they doing? Trev, can you speak on this? No, motherfucker, I'm not gonna speak on it. All right, let's focus. Because I'm speaking on it, right? Funny stuff, man. I gotta love it at the same time, right? Gotta love it. Can you speak on what they doing, Trev? Blocked. What are your thoughts on Epstein? Blocked. What should we as a people block? What should we as a people? All right, enough giggles. Whoa, change the battery. Oh, see, I got this old school camera. Got to change the battery. How much battery time I got? See, can't be doing all that yet. That's all right though. I got 3 backup batteries. I was prepared for this. Let me finish this page and then I'll switch batteries. What magic should we be doing to stop ice? Hmm? How did you find me? Because I'm not the one you're looking for. What should we as occultists do about Epstein? Listen, enough is enough. Okay, these are the. All right, reel it in. Reel it in. These are the initiators of each evolution until those who are initiated themselves, having passed through the life, are proceeding outwards again. By the action of these entities, those who are initiated proceed from the surface to the substratum of their plane. And it is only when the waters of regeneration have penetrated through the cracks and fissures of receptive consciousness to a plane that initiation can take place on that plane. Thus, it is that at this stage, the greater illumination can only take place out of the body. Didn't I, didn't I tell y'all? It's not the physical plane. The magic is happening on the etheric and the astral and above. Thus, it is that at this stage, the greater illumination can only take place out of the body. For in this phase of evolution, the waters of regeneration have not yet reached the physical plane. If you don't get anything else, man, woman, child, if you don't get anything else, low battery, yeah, I know. I got you, sweetheart. If you don't get anything else, the magic is not happening on the physical plane, so stop looking for it on the physical plane. And let me switch this battery. What should we as occultists do about the president? What magic can we do to fight the cabal? All right. How's that battery? Okay, good. Gotta get this zoom real quick. Ooh, perfect power, 100% battery. We're gonna finish strong, my friends. We're gonna finish strong. All right, good to go. Good to go. Okay, where were we? We were talking about yeah. So these initiators, right? These are the initiators of each evolution until those who are initiated. Where's my highlighter? There it is. Yeah, we got some lines in here. Thus it is that at this stage, the greater illumination can only take place out of the body. For in this phase of evolution, the waters of regeneration have not yet reached the physical plane. Now, look, one day the physical plane will be magical. It's going to be Disneyland, Disney World, as I knocked over Princess Jasmine. It's going to be Disneyland. It's going to be Star Wars, Harry Potter, all that good stuff. Yeah, that's going to happen inevitably because it has to. Everything has to happen, but that's not right now. That's not right now. These are the initiators, and this could also be why artists are considered initiators and prophets, because artists introduce ideas and concepts and visions, visuals, sounds, and all types of things that we don't think about, thereby giving us a glimpse of the future. Gosh, man, there's so many tangents I can go on. But what the future looks like for the human race is that everyone will be capable of everything. You know that's inevitably coming. Really interesting, like in the past, in the early stages of humanity, is at least what we have recorded, everybody did something specific, right? Um, you knew that you were going to be a farmer, and you were a farmer until you died. Your son was going to be a farmer. Your daughter was going to be a farmer. Like everybody had their jobs. Certain people were knights in shining armor. That's what they were going to do for the rest of their life. Like everybody had a specific place in society. This is how the caste system came about, all that good stuff. But one of the trends that I notice is that after a while of certain positions or behaviors are archetyped, are stereotyped, are set in stone, what happens is that we no longer need one person to do that. Now, one person can do the role of multiple people, right? At one point, a mother's only job was to, you know, raise the kids. Now, a mother has multiple tasks, right? Before, a person only had to be a farmer or a textile worker or something. Now, you might have to be multiple things in a day, right? Something might break. Now you got to be the handyman, right? Or now you got to be the chef. Now you got to go out and hunt and get food, aka grocery shop. What I'm saying is that as time progresses, all the different things that can be done are done by one person. That's just how the evolution works. I know a lot of people are complaining about what's possible with AI now, but we're moving into a future where everyone is going to be a musician if they want to. Everyone's going to be a visual artist, right? Everyone's going to be able to do everything. If that kind of thought makes you upset, you might want to consider why it does. Because the closer we get to the center, there's only unity. It's inevitable. Inevitable. Right now, we're starting to reach where, and this is why I said that. I said, man, woman, and child. You know, there used to be the family unit was a separate individual unit of father, mother, child. Now it's moving into a phase where the family is a person, an individual. And I believe that's part of what is coming with the eon of Horus, the eon of the child. Everyone will be the father, the mother, and the child. Everyone will be everything until the point that we'll be forced to see there is no separation. There is nothing but unity. Now that ain't no time real soon, but it's coming. It's inevitable. Who knows? Maybe our technology will accelerate that path, but it's definitely a part of that process. We can't be anything but what we already are. And don't get it twisted, man. What we see today is not even the beginning of it. We ain't even opened the package yet. We still fumbling with the plastic. Once this thing opens up, it's opening up. Things are changing and moving fast now. Things are gonna move and change so fast that it'll be increasingly difficult to believe that human beings are running the show. Increasingly difficult to believe that, and we will see that in our lifetime. We might see that in a couple of years, and that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Don't be scared of the future, guys. Don't be scared of this evolution, this unification, this hurtling towards unity, because this has always been the plan. Nobody made a mistake. Nobody fucked it all up. This has always been the plan. I'm not talking about anything specific. I'm speaking in general. One more time, because I want you to keep this in mind. Write it down, highlight it. But remember this. Thus it is that at this stage, the greater illumination can only take place out of the body. For in this phase of evolution, the waters of regeneration have not yet reached the physical plane. They will, not yet. Let me read that back again, because that was very poetic and she had a lot of innuendos here. You got to pay attention when Dion's using innuendos. These are the initiators of each evolution. We talked about the forerunners. What does she call it? The Lord of the Shadow. She said some cool supervillain name. Um, Shadow of the Spirit. That's what it was. She said, those entities that have returned to the center at the conclusion of their evolution flow out again as the forerunners of the shadow of the Spirit. It is these who are the initiators. They themselves have been enabled to progress in advance of evolution by being themselves initiated by developed entities of previous evolutions. And wasn't she just telling us about the whole reason she's writing this book is because she was initiated by the lords of her previous initiation? Look at Miss Fortune. Look at Miss Violet Mary Fourth. Firth. They themselves have been enabled to progress in advance of evolution by being themselves initiated by developed entities of previous evolutions according to the planes on which they took initiation. The lords of each plane being the completed fruits of the evolution which had its culmination on that plane. These are the initiators of each evolution until those who are initiated themselves, having passed through the life, are proceeding outwards again. By the action of these entities, those who are initiated proceed from the surface to the substratum of their plane, and it is only when the waters of regeneration have penetrated through the cracks and fissures of receptive consciousness to a plane, right? Only then that initiation can take place on that plane. And overflow to those who are capable of receiving it. Thus it is that At this stage, the greater illumination can only take place out of the body. Now that makes sense, right? Look at that previous line she said. By the action of these entities, those who are initiated proceed from the surface, right? So from the surface, and they're going within to the substratum of their plane. And it is only when the waters of regeneration. So look, this is for those of us who dwell in this astral plane a lot. I don't know about y'all, but I probably spend more time there than I do on the physical. My uncle used to say a rising tide lifts all ships. Make sure your ship is in the water. By the action of these entities, those who are initiated proceed from the surface to the substratum of their plane, and it is only when the waters of regeneration have penetrated through the cracks and fissures of receptive consciousness to a plane that initiation can take place on that plane. Thus it is that at this stage, the greater illumination can only take place out of the body, for in this phase of evolution, the waters of regeneration have not yet reached the physical plane. Make sure that your ship is in the water. Let's move on to 3. In relation to devolution, the attraction of the center has a third aspect in devolution, or the way of the left hand path if applied to consciousness. In relation to evolution, devolution means the withdrawal of life from any given type of form and the disintegration of these forms. The systems of magnetic stresses which life generated in them are then left as empty shells upon the etheric subplanes. These shells should wait the cleansing of the waters of regeneration that flow out in the tide of the cosmic night. Okay, she's adding a new piece to this whole thing. She's adding a new piece to this puzzle. In relation to evolution, devolution means the withdrawal of life from any given type of form. So think about form. I mean, it's not hard to think about. It's everywhere. The withdrawal of life from any given type of form and the disintegration of these forms, right? So life pulls out. I mean, if somebody dies, the life pulls out of their body and the body begins to disintegrate. This is easy. The systems of magnetic stresses which life generated in them are then left as empty shells upon the etheric subplanes. So put this together with what we said before, right? Your physical body didn't come first. Remember, there's an etheric mold, an etheric shell around your body right now. That's why every time you clip your nails, they grow the same. Every time you shave your head bald, your hair grows back in the same kind of way, right? Your same hairline, all that good stuff. As your body is growing and the cells are replicating and all that stuff, it's filling a etheric cookie cutter type of mold. That's not just with you, but everything has that around them. And it works in layers. Like there's a human mold where everything has a head with 2 ears, 2 eyes, nose, mouth, arms, legs, 10 fingers, 10 toes, right? 2 lungs, kidneys. Like there's an etheric mold that every life form that comes through as a human, it's going to grow in that mold. And then there's a category split. Some of those molds are going to have dark skin. Some are going to have light skin. Some are going to have female parts. Some are going to have male parts. Some are going to have this color hair, this color eyes. You keep going down these different tiers of differentiation, but ultimately there's a cookie cutter, just like I always give the example of the iPhone. On somebody's computer is a model of an iPhone. You can keep printing out iPhones based on that model. And hell, mine broke, right? Somebody else's is fixed. Somebody's got these apps. Someone's got these apps. But none of those change the actual blueprint. None of those change that mold that's on that computer. So look, in relation to evolution, devolution means the withdrawal of life from any given type of form and the disintegration of these forms. So that's my phone breaking. The systems of magnetic stresses which life generated in them, right? That's the blueprint of the iPhone on Steve Jobs' computer. The systems of magnetic stresses which life generated in them are left as empty shells upon the etheric subplanes. So that means when the life is withdrawn from the form of something, its etheric mold, that cookie cutter, right? It still exists. It still exists. You've heard of that concept before, right? Especially if you read Manly P. Hall, Rose of Flame. These shells should wait the cleansing of the waters of regeneration that flow out in the tide of the cosmic night. It sometimes happens, however, that souls which are sufficiently developed have reached the point when they feel the attraction of the center upon the path of returning. Yes, Lord. Yet are insufficiently developed in certain aspects to be ready for evolution because they have not yet sufficiently undergone involution. These may set out to return to the center before they have passed the nadir. So imagine having a certain level of occult understanding, and you're like, you know what, man? Fuck life. I'm tired of it. I'm going to try to skip ahead. I'm going to leave this body, and I'm going to use my knowledge, and I'm going to attempt to go back up that tree. Fuck it. I'm going to do it. Right? I'm going to force my ego to persist. You ever had thoughts like that? Let's see what she says. They feel the attraction of the center upon the path of returning, yet are insufficiently developed in certain aspects to be ready for evolution because they have not yet sufficiently undergone involution. These may set out to return to the center before they have passed the nadir, before they have finished their lessons on Malkuth. All right, so I gave you that example of the iPhone and the blueprint so you can understand this part. They will then be moving through planes from which the life has withdrawn. The ghost plane. They will then, the Langoliers, they will then be moving through planes from which the life has withdrawn and whereon lie the empty shells waiting the coming of the tides of the cosmic night. These souls will then avail themselves of the systems of magnetic stresses of primitive types for the expression of their functions. What would be the function, right? What are your functions? Why do you still have functions that need to be expressed? Because you didn't finish your Malkuth education. Talk to me. You hear what I'm saying? Is this making any kind of sense? What's the virtue of Malkuth? Does anybody know? Discernment. Discernment. What is what's the Vedic called discernment? Viveka. Viveka, like a sword, like a sharp knife. Non-attachment. You can't leave Malkuth until you understand discernment and non-attachment. You can't, because by virtue of not understanding non-attachment and discernment, by virtue of not understanding that, you must reincarnate into a form and have Malkuth life. You got to, until you understand non-attachment and discernment. So imagine if you tried to skip ahead, you're going to carry with you attachment and discernment. Attachment to what? Well, shit, if I've been a human all my life and then I decide to die and I want to do the left-hand path thing of eternal life, I still have, what am I carrying with me? My human memories, my samskaras that have not been cleaned. I still have needs, right? All kind of needs that come with the human body. If anyone has explored this whole left-hand path thing of immortality, you can kind of put together what I'm putting down. Or not. Let's just say you shouldn't have needs when you transcend the body. Especially not no human needs. How you gonna get to heaven with human needs? How are you gonna get to heaven with human needs? How you gonna get to Kether with human needs? How you talk about transcending and all this other stuff? Does that make sense? If you still have human needs, then like just by the definition, you're not finished. You must exhaust human needs. Because why? Because human needs belong to the animal body. It's the animal that has those needs. You don't have needs. The animal has needs. And if you carry that with you, that means that you are still identified with the animal. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. All right. These souls will then avail themselves of the systems of magnetic stresses of primitive types for the expression of their functions. This will explain much if meditated upon. Absolutely. That's cool. Um, Dang, I want to circle, but I'm not going to circle it. Anyways, when, however, these souls, having outworn and destroyed the shells and thereby impeded subsequent evolution, what do? Continue on their devolutionary path. They reach a point where there are no more shells for their ensouling, and they will then be unable to maintain form and will dissolve into the unorganized elements of substance and cease to be potent for evil or potential for good. That is the record of the left-hand path. That don't sound good to me. That don't sound good to me. That might sound good to somebody, but I remember certain teachers on YouTube teaching about this, and this was the way, right? You had to master this art of the left-hand path, persist beyond your death. Then you get into the inner circles and you learn about vampirism, and you learn about how to transfer your consciousness into other forms so that you can be prepared for death. It's valid. It's real. It's cool at first. But I can't help but wonder, would it be profitable to teach people how to do this just in case you do run out of shells to inhabit? Then you can always have a fresh selection of shells with your cult. Don't let me stop you from your left-hand path stuff. Let's continue. Let's continue. Don't want to spook nobody. Dark side, nigga. Left hand path, nigga. Dark side. I'm a left hand path, dark side. Right, hanging on for dear life. But hey, everybody does what they're here to do. More power to you. Can't knock the hustle. Evolution by the right hand path is accomplished through the withdrawal of the perfected life from the forms which separate. The synthesis of the principles which the forms were designed to express, the sublimation of the principles into ideals, and the realization of the ideals by cosmic consciousness, such as the record of evolution upon the right hand path. Read that again. Evolution by the right hand path is accomplished through the withdrawal of the perfected life from the forms which separate, the synthesis of the principles which the forms were designed to express, the sublimation of the principles into ideals, and the realization of the ideals by cosmic consciousness. Such is the record of evolution upon the right hand path. And ultimately, everything goes back to where it came from. Like I said, these animal urges are not yours, they belong to the body. Likewise, the high concepts and ideals and virtues and all the glorious abstract principles, those aren't yours either. They have their place to go to as well. This life in a human body, it's almost like this magnetic container holding a bunch of different stuff. And no matter what path or this, no matter anything, all that stuff that composes you goes back to where it came from. So all the little stuff that makes up the body goes back. All your personality, because you didn't create your personality, you picked it up along the way from different things. You saw that and said, I want to be like that. You saw that over there and said, I want to be like that. And you compiled a bunch of different influences to create you. And when you die, when the form dies, all those pieces that you collected go back to where they came from. As it should, right? They serve their purpose. And hey, right? Because I talked about non-attachment, right? I talked about discernment. That there is a comfort, there is an ease of letting those things return to where they belong, because you realize that they're not yours. If you don't realize it, you're going to hold on to it. Therefore, you're going to keep going through this process of incarnation. Drew's original said, I think any path can be perverted in the way you describe it. Absolutely. Anything can be perverted in any way. It is what it is. No Limit Studios. Can I speak to P? P ain't here. It will be seen then that the essence of evolution is unification. The essence of evolution is unification, and the manifestation of the unifactory principle upon the planes of manifestation is love. The essence of evolution is unification, and the manifestation of the unifactory principle upon the planes of manifestation is love. Whether that love be intellectual sympathy on the plane of the concrete mind, that's what most of us know it as, or physical unity on the plane of matter. Love in all aspects is the symbol of the logos as one. Love, man, love. And it's not an emotional thing, and it's not just an intellectual sympathy, and it's not just a physical unity. It's deeper than those things too. A love is a realization of that unity. There's no choice but to love. Once you understand, once you reach that level of understanding, there's nothing to do but love. You can't, because there's nothing else. It's all one. The aim of evolution is to make all things one. And upon the plane of manifestation, there are but two things which make all things one: death and love. Beautiful. Beautiful. The aim of evolution is to make all things one. And upon the plane of manifestation, there are two things which make all things one: death and love. See, death is the manifestation of the left hand path, and love is the manifestation of the right hand path. Cool. Whose loves? However dim may be his concept of love, is manifesting a unification. And unification is the goal of evolution. You can't lose with love. God is one. Love makes one. Therefore, it is truly said, God is love. God is love. We are reaching the end, my friends. We are reaching the end of the chapter, and who knows, maybe of other things too. Whosoever expresses love brings spirit, which is one, into manifestation. To be loving is to be good. May everything you do be a manifestation of love. Oh, look how clear my unicorn is with this camera. Hell, I might just start using this camera from now on. God is love. Whosoever expresses love brings spirit, which is one, into manifestation. To be loving is to be good. Whosoever expresses hate brings separateness into manifestation. To be separate is to be dead. Therefore, choose love and live. Choose love and live. Live, baby girl. Live. And that's it. That's it. That's as far as we go tonight. What a powerful chapter. What a powerful book, man. Golly, dude. Like, I got to read this thing again because there's so much in it. So much in it. I don't know, man. We might have to pick this one up in a couple months again. But yeah, so that's like the last chapter of the book. Now, after this is the afterthoughts. It's about 10 pages, I want to say. Actually, more than that. Yeah, a little bit more than that. But we'll do that next Saturday. Next Saturday with this camera and this setup. All right, so listen, thank you guys for being here. I appreciate you. This is love, man. I love doing this. So this is me literally manifesting evolution, right? And you're a part of this. Why would you be here the whole time watching this damn video? Either you're insane or you also love yourself. Keep it up, my friends. Keep it up. Keep your head up. Keep doing the work. If you haven't watched the video that I uploaded today, go do that. Go do that. Because look, there are ebbs and flows in this spiritual journey, whatever you want to call it. It's ups and it's downs. And if you've been practicing and really, really seeing powerful results, inevitably after that, you're going to experience a crash. You're going to experience this type of dry season. And it will feel like you have completely lost everything spiritually, right? No power, no spirits talking to you. It feels barren. And if you watch my channel, you've heard me talk about that experience many times. And I've seen it enough to realize, wow, this is actually how it's supposed to happen. The tide comes in and it goes out. So what has to happen is you got to have some type of system in place to keep you moving, regardless if the water's high or if the water's low. That's important when you reach a certain level of spirituality, or else you're going to get sad, you're going to get tired, right? You might even give this whole thing up. I know everyone says, oh, I can't give it up. It's a lifestyle. But you haven't been pushed to that limit yet, right? You haven't been pushed to that limit yet. Plenty of people have been occultists and gave it up. And I'm willing to wager they gave it up during these dry seasons, during these seasons where it felt like everything was barren. But I'm here to tell you, it's actually part of the journey. You're supposed to go through that so you can learn. You know, it's just like life and death, man. You got to have everything stripped from you so that you can see what you actually have. That's a process that continues forever. Hell, we kind of talked about that in this last chapter. That inflowing and that outflowing. We talked about these magnetic stresses that create this shell, right? You know, when this body passes, you're going to see that this body isn't yours. These memories aren't yours. That personality's not yours. Your loved ones, your friends, your family's not yours. All the stuff that you've done is not, like, none of it is you. None of it is you. So, like, some people, that's as deep as they know themselves. So if I say that's not, it's going to cause cognitive dissonance, because it's like, well, what is me? What is me? I'm nothing. Without my memories, I'm nothing, right? Without my personality and my quirky, unique style, I'm nothing. You got to dig deeper than that. Who's watching those memories? Who's watching the personality? Who's observing the body? Who's expressing that quirky, unique style? Oh, I'm just so quirky. Who's expressing those things, right? You got to dig deeper than that surface level, and you'll find the unity that she talked about in this chapter we just read. You'll find that unity, and when you find that unity, you'll see it everywhere. And then all of a sudden, your Epstein list or whatever's on the circus becomes drastically less important than immersing yourself in that center, in that unification. All right. All right. You understand what I'm talking about? Great. Those of you who are in my Goetia class, stay tuned. As Module 4 is released, I've got some powerful information that has been the culmination of my spiritual lessons and journeys that I've been through. So I know this is going to benefit you all greatly. If you're not a part of my Goetia class, consider being a part of that class. I'll give you some more opportunities to be a part of that in the next coming days. And yeah, we'll finish this chapter here, this book here, next Saturday. Next Saturday. All right. We good? Are we Gucci? It's been a long time. Shouldn't have left let out a dope beat. Step two, step two, step two. Pick it, pick it. You don't want to throw it all away. I might be tired on the first day. What about the next day? Oh, 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 oh. If at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. You should dust it off and try again, again. You know the song. At first you don't succeed. All right, everybody. Peace and greetings. Peace and greetings. I mean, peace and, have a good night. Type beat. Try again, try again. Death in Japan is represented with the color white. This click in my mind, black and white are crazy. Interesting. Matthew Watson says, sometimes it's best to give up what little we have to gain all that is. Absolutely. Proteus, seer of eons. Peace and greetings, my friend. Peace and greetings. You should dust it off, try again, again. All right, this is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you. Peace. No Limit Studios. Does anybody even know what that's from, or have I just been making a joke to myself the whole time? Which happens usually. Go look up No Limit Studios. P ain't here. P ain't here. I know at least somebody knew. All right. Peace out, my friends.